When the new documentary dropped, exposing secrets, threats, and the quiet war brewing between 50 Cent and Diddy, the world thought the story ended there. They thought the danger was on screen, sealed in interviews and archived footage. They were wrong. What also made the headlines involved me. I was the carrier. That made the delivery to 50. And it's hard for me to tell this story because every detail comes from firsthand experience. I move messages for powerful men who never speak directly, never touch what they send. But the night after that documentary aired, I was ordered to deliver a black box to 50 Cent, one that felt wrong the moment it touched my hands, like something inside it recognized me. I didn't understand the danger until it was too late. What happened next didn't just change their war, it changed me. Because the box wasn't the delivery, I was. Miami has a way of making you feel like you're part of something bigger. Maybe it's the skyline, maybe it's the heat, or maybe it's the way everything moves just fast enough to feel alive, but slow enough to feel dangerous. Either way, I used to love this city. Its contradictions, its shadows, its secrets, especially because I was one of them. People dream about working for celebrities or getting backstage access at South Beach clubs. But being a carrier, that's a different kind of cool. It's the kind of job no one can brag about because no one's supposed to know you exist. No uniform, no badge, just a card, a number, and access to places other people only see on filtered Instagram stories. The best part, being invisible. Moving through penthouses and basement doors without being noticed, trusted by powerful people because anonymity is your only value. At least, that's what I used to think. Before the delivery I'm about to tell you about, the one still sitting behind my eyes every time I try to sleep. Back then, I didn't realize how quickly cool could turn into fear. I remember sitting on my balcony overlooking Brickell, the humidity thick enough to taste, thinking I finally found a place where I belonged. Miami's lights flickered across glass towers like reflections of the life I almost had, a normal one. Then my phone vibrated. One short notification, the line calling. I wiped my palm and answered. "Carrier 9, I said. A woman's voice, calm, professional, impossible to read, responded, "Your services have been requested. High priority. Pick up in 1 hour." My throat tightened. Not from fear, but instinct. High priority deliveries were sensitive. The kind clients didn't want their own people touching. "Location?" I asked. She gave me a spot I knew well. A rundown office building long abandoned, tucked between a construction zone and a dying strip mall, a place the city forgot on purpose. "Client identity?" I asked. Silence. Not long, but deliberate. "Do not initiate conversation. Do not open the package. Deliver promptly." Never good signs. I hung up and stared at the phone longer than I should have. My reflection looked different than the last time I checked it. More tired, more hollow. Like whatever I had been carrying these past months was finally starting to show. Or maybe it was just this job. Some nights stay with you, long after they end. Driving to the pickup felt heavier than usual. Miami was quiet, but not in a peaceful way. It was the kind of quiet where every stoplight feels like an opportunity to turn around, and every shadow feels like it's holding something it shouldn't. When I pulled into the back lot of the building, the air felt thick, unmoving. My headlights skimmed across cracked pavement, a rusted dumpster, weeds forcing their way through concrete. No contact waiting, no handler, no lookout. Just a single object placed neatly on a wooden crate under a flickering utility light. A black box, plain, unmarked, perfectly centered. I stepped out of the car, and the moment the door shut, the neighborhood felt sealed. Like the city had stepped back and left me alone with whatever was about to happen. I approached the crate slowly. Not because I was scared, fear wasn't new to me, but because I respected the rule everyone in the line eventually learns. The simpler something looks, the more dangerous it usually is. The box was about the size of a shoebox, but heavier, much heavier. The weight pulled at my wrist, forced my hand down more than I expected. My fingers tingled. Not badly, just enough to notice. Funny thing is, my hand still feels that sensation sometimes. Like the weight didn't disappear when I set the box down later, but stayed inside my bones. I lifted it with both hands, bracing my back, and carried it to the car. My door creaked louder than usual. The city felt impossibly quiet. I placed the box on the back seat and closed the door gently, almost respectfully. When I sat down in the driver's seat, I caught my own eyes in the rearview mirror. They looked tired, more than tired, close to something else, something I wasn't ready to name. The engine started, and then my phone buzzed again. Not the line, a blocked number. I hesitated before answering, and I don't hesitate often, not in my world. "Hello," I said. A voice, smooth, confident, unmistakably belonging to someone who didn't need to introduce himself, spoke. "You got the package, right? Good. Deliver that to 11. And tell him," a tiny pause, almost playful, "I can't wait to take him shopping." The line cut. I stared at my phone, my pulse thudding just hard enough to feel in my neck. Some voices leave a mark the moment you hear them. Some deliveries never leave you at all. And I didn't know it then, but that night was about to become one of them. The drive toward downtown should have felt familiar, almost routine. I'd made that trip hundreds of times, crossing the causeway with the city stretching open like a neon heartbeat. But tonight, everything felt closer. The streets, the cars, even the air pressing against the windshield felt tighter than usual, like Miami itself was leaning in to listen. The box sat behind me in perfect stillness, but I couldn't stop checking the mirror. Not because I expected it to move, just because I didn't trust how aware of it I'd become. Most deliveries blurred together, forgotten by the next sunrise. But this one clung to me, sitting in the back seat like a silent passenger I hadn't agreed to pick up. I changed lanes. The headlights behind me smeared across the mirror, and for a moment I caught my own reflection. Eyes a little too wide, jaw a little too tight. That wasn't how a carrier was supposed to look. We were trained to be calm, unshaken, almost bored by danger. But no amount of training prepares you for the call of someone with real power, the kind of man whose voice doesn't just speak, it decides. As I entered the nightlife district, music from the clubs pulsed through the streets. Lines wrapped around buildings, drunk laughter spilled onto sidewalks. Everyone seemed to be running toward something exciting. I was the only one running toward something I didn't understand. 11's neon logo came into view, towering above the chaos. Even from blocks away, I could feel the energy pulling at the crowd, like a vortex swallowing people whole and spitting out whatever was left when the sun came up. I pulled into the restricted drop-off lane, and the valet gave a quick nod at the card clipped onto my dash. That nod wasn't respect, it was recognition, fear disguised as professionalism. I parked in the alley beside the club, killed the engine, and took a breath before opening the back door. The weight of the box hit me again as I lifted it, heavier than a normal package, heavier than something its size should ever be. I braced it against my ribs, adjusted my hold, and stepped out into the humid Miami night. Heat from the building's vents hissed down on me. The city's sounds felt farther away, muffled, like I'd stepped through an invisible curtain separating the outside world from whatever this job truly was. I rounded the corner toward the entrance, moving past the long line of clubgoers. A girl in a glittering silver dress bumped into me and mouthed, "Sorry?" But her eyes flicked down to the box. Her smile faded. She stepped back without knowing why. People sense danger even when they can't name it. Two large men peeled off from the crowd behind me. No urgency, no aggression, just steady, practiced movement. Men built like linebackers who knew how to stand out without looking like they were trying to. I felt their presence before I saw their faces. Carriers don't look back. We observe from angles. Peripheral vision is survival. They stayed close. When I reached the velvet rope, a bouncer the size of a refrigerator placed a hand on my chest. "You delivering for someone?" he asked. His tone wasn't rude. It was cautious. "Yes," I said. He nodded, but didn't move aside. His eyes scanned the box, then my pockets, then my face. Carriers know the look. He was checking if I understood the risk of whatever I was holding. I reached into my pocket slowly and pulled out the matte black card. No branding, no number, no name. Just weight, authority in physical form. The moment he saw it, his posture changed. He lifted the rope without a word. The two men following me approached next, and the bouncer lowered his arm across their path. "Hold up." I didn't stay to watch the conversation. Once the rope opened, I kept moving. Hesitation is how carriers die. Inside, the club air hit me like steam, thick with sweat, perfume, spilled drinks, and vibrating bass. Lights strobed across the ceiling, slicing the darkness into neon fragments that flashed across bodies moving like they were underwater. A security guard in a tailored black suit appeared immediately, as if materializing from the strobe. "You're with me?" he said. Not a question, not a greeting. I followed him through the crowd, weaving between dancers and raised hands and champagne bottles sparking with gold fireworks. But even with the music shaking the floorboards, I felt the faint pressure of someone still watching me. Someone tracking my movements. Someone unseen. The guard led me up a side staircase where the air cooled and the sound thinned. At the top was a private balcony overlooking the entire club, an island above the chaos. And that's where I saw him. 50 Cent, leaning back in a VIP booth, laughing with a couple of his guys, one hand around a drink, the other gesturing mid-story. His chain caught the light every time he moved. Even from here, he had that presence. Solid, grounded, like a man who knew exactly who feared him and exactly who didn't. The guard stepped aside. "That's your delivery." My pulse thumped once, hard. The crowd below roared as another beat dropped, but all I could hear was the echo of the voice from the phone. "Tell him I can't wait to take him shopping." I tightened my grip on the box and walked toward the man who wasn't supposed to ever receive something like this. Up close, 50 Cent had the kind of presence that didn't need volume. He didn't even notice me at first. He was laughing with two of his guys, telling a story, hands moving with the rhythm of someone who'd survived too much to pretend he hadn't. But when the security guard stepped aside and I stopped at the edge of the booth, 50's eyes shifted toward me with surgical precision. The laughter didn't stop. It just paused, like someone hit the mute button on a remote. He nodded once. "That for me?" he asked, chin lifting toward the box in my hands. "Yes," I said. "From who?" I didn't answer. I wasn't allowed to. But 50 didn't need the name. A slow, knowing smile spread across his face, the kind that carried both amusement and warning. "Hey, all right," he said. "Put it here." I set the black box on the table. The booth shifted from relaxed to alert. His guys leaned in slightly. Phones lowered. Drinks paused mid-air. The music thumped beneath us, but up here, it felt distant, like the club was underwater and only this moment had oxygen. 50 studied the box for a long beat. "You touched anything you shouldn't?" "No," I said. "Opened it?" "No." "Good. 'Cause with him, you never know what the hell he'd send." He cracked the lid, and there they were. Daisies. A full bouquet. Fresh, white, ghost pale under the gold lighting. The kind of flowers that look harmless until you learn what they mean. 50's smile disappeared. Not anger, not fear. Just that cold, focused expression he wore in interviews when someone crossed a line they couldn't uncross. He leaned forward slightly, fingers brushing the petals. "Cute," he said. "Real cute." He plucked one daisy from the bunch, twirled it slowly between his fingers like he was testing the weight of a bullet. Then he looked up at me. "You know what this means, right?" I swallowed. "A warning," he nodded. "Yeah, his version of it. See, he don't send threats the way normal people do. No messages, no calls, just gestures." He held up the flower. "And gestures are worse, 'cause they stick." He set the daisy down and motioned to the empty seat across from him. "Sit." I sat. He waved for the server, pointed at a small wooden humidor, and pulled out 2 cigars. He slid one toward me. Smoke? I shook my head. No, thank you. He smirked. Smart. Keep your lungs clean. You need them in this business. He lit his own cigar, exhaled a ribbon of smoke toward the ceiling, then leaned back and watched the crowd below like he was remembering something. Let me tell you something he did, 50 said, tapping the cigar ash into a glass. Years ago, he thought he could get one over on me, tried to embarrass me, thought he could use somebody close to me to do it. He didn't name her. He didn't have to. His jaw tightened, barely, but enough. He thought it was cute. Disrespect disguised as a joke. But see, 50 leaned forward, elbows on the table. When you disrespect somebody who's quiet, that's one kind of problem. But disrespect somebody who's been through hell, somebody who raised a son by himself, somebody who already survived things that would have folded most people. He tapped the cigar against the rim again. That's different. That's dangerous. For him, he looked at the daisies again, shaking his head. Man really sent these to my club, a half chuckle, but not amused. Still trying to play? He pointed at me. You did good bringing this. Most people would have opened it, or panicked, or thrown it in the bay. I've delivered worse, I said. He held my stare for a moment, evaluating something deeper than my job title. Yeah, he said, but you ain't delivered him before. And anything tied to him, it don't wash off easy. He finished the cigar, stood, stretched slightly like he'd been sitting too long. You good to walk around? Bathroom's behind that booth. I nodded and stepped away. Inside the bathroom, the bass was a distant hum, steady and dull behind the tile walls. I splashed cold water on my face, cleared my throat, tried to slow my breathing. Deliveries weren't supposed to shake me, but this one left something heavy in my chest. As I left the bathroom, I passed a narrow window facing the alley. The glass was fogged from humidity, but through it, I saw a figure I knew instantly. Justin Combs, standing perfectly still in the alley's shadows. His face angled directly upward toward the window, and he was smiling. A slow, deliberate, sinister grin, like he'd been waiting for me to look. Then he lifted his hand and waved. I blinked. My heart punched once against my ribs. I looked again. He was gone, vanished into the alley like he'd never been there at all. I stepped backward, stomach tightening, every instinct I'd ever learned burning through me. Something was changing. Something was brewing. And the city felt it before the rest of us. When I returned to the balcony, 50 was on stage performing. The crowd roared as he held the mic, lights exploding around him in a storm of color and sound. But as he performed, something hit me harder than the music. Diddy isn't going to stay locked up forever. The daisies, the message, the grin in the alley, it wasn't intimidation. It was preparation, a warning toward my car. That's when my phone buzzed. The line, a single message. Delivery confirmed. Do not revisit the client. Do not acknowledge communication attempts. Dispose of the card. No signature, no follow-up. Cold instructions from the organization that paid me to stay invisible. But the part that stuck in my chest wasn't the message. It was the last line. Further involvement not recommended. Recommended, not ordered. Which meant the line didn't control this situation. Someone else did. Someone bigger. I slid the card into my pocket instead of throwing it away. Something told me I wasn't done. Not with the card. Not with the message. Not with any of this. As I reached my car door, I felt a presence behind me. Not footsteps, just awareness. The instinct that saves carriers before anything else can. I turned slowly. Nothing. Just the mouth of the alley stretching into darkness. The same place where Justin had stood grinning at me like he knew something I didn't. I got into the car and locked the doors automatically. My hand stayed on the steering wheel longer than necessary. The engine hummed beneath me, steady, but somehow distant. I replayed the night in my head, the black box, the voice on the phone, the daisies, 50's face when he understood, Justin's smile, the lines warning. Piece by piece, the pattern emerged. This wasn't intimidation. This wasn't fear-mongering. This was a promise. A declaration from someone who had already decided what came next. Someone who believed time and prison walls were temporary inconveniences. I pulled out of the alley, headlights cutting through the humid Miami dark. The road ahead felt narrow, uncertain, alive with the echoes of something approaching. At a red light, a giant digital billboard flickered above the skyline, cycling between ads and nightlife promos. One glitch caught my eye, bright white for a moment, like a blank screen. White, like the daisies. My chest tightened. The light turned green. I didn't move right away. The image of Justin waving replayed in my mind, burned there like a scar. That smile didn't belong to someone sending a threat. It belonged to someone waiting for orders. Someone who believed the man giving those orders wouldn't stay caged for long. I finally pressed the gas and merged into the quiet Miami streets, the club shrinking behind me, but the night refusing to let go. And as I drove, the truth settled in my bones. It's all jokes, all games. When he's locked up, when the bars are closed around him, when the system feels bigger than the ego behind it. But I could feel it in the air, in the city, in the way people whispered his name lately. This wasn't over. It was barely beginning. I glanced at the mirror one last time, half expecting to see someone sitting in the back seat. Nothing. But the night felt thinner. The world felt smaller. And the question 50 never said out loud pressed itself into my thoughts until it became the only thing I could hear. When the diddler gets out, what do any of us do next?